full of false flag events. The Reichstag fire that Hitler used to seize emergency powers. The Gulf of Tonkin incident that was used to justify escalating the Vietnam War. Operation Northwoods, which was a proposed false flag that Kennedy rejected, but shows that governments do plan these things. The pattern is always the same: crisis, reaction, solution. Create a crisis or take advantage of a real crisis, generate public fear and outrage, then implement the solution you wanted all along. And what's a solution the global elite wants? Control, surveillance, the ability to monitor everything you do, everything you say, everywhere you go. The AI surveillance state. We're already moving in that direction. Digital IDs, facial recognition, social credit systems, CBDCs, central bank digital currencies that will give governments complete control over your money. All of this is being rolled out gradually. But they need crises to justify accelerating the rollout. They need people to be scared enough to accept measures they would normally reject. So watch for more events like the Bondi Beach shooting. Watch for more terrorist attacks, more extremist violence, more reasons why we need to give up privacy and freedom for security. And don't fall for it. Don't let fear drive you into accepting tyranny. Let me explain a bit more about why game theory is so important for understanding geopolitics. In game theory, we think about actors as having goals, constraints, and strategies. Every player in the game is trying to achieve certain objectives while operating under certain limitations. For example, take Russia and Ukraine. What are Russia's goals? To prevent NATO expansion, to maintain a buffer zone, to protect ethnic Russians, to reassert Russian power. What are Russia's constraints? Economic sanctions, military limitations, domestic political considerations. What are Ukraine's goals? To maintain sovereignty, to join Western institutions, to protect territorial integrity. What are Ukraine's constraints? Military weakness compared to Russia, dependence on Western support, internal divisions. What are NATO's goals? To contain Russia, to maintain credibility, to support democracy. What are NATO's constraints? War weariness among populations, economic costs, risk of nuclear escalation. When you map out the goals and constraints of each player, you can start to predict how the situation will evolve. You can identify the stable equilibria, the outcomes that no player has an incentive to change. You can identify the flashpoints, the scenarios where the game breaks down into conflict. And you can understand why certain strategies are chosen. Russia's strategy in Ukraine makes sense given their goals and constraints. NATO's strategy makes sense given their goals and constraints. Ukraine's strategy makes sense given their goals and constraints. That doesn't mean you have to agree with any of these strategies. It doesn't mean you think they're morally right, but you can understand them. And understanding is the first step to predicting what happens next. The interconnected crises. And here's why. Understanding the interconnections is so crucial. Every crisis affects every other crisis. What happens in Ukraine affects what happens in the Middle East. Why? Because Russia is deeply involved in Syria. Because Iran's relationship with Russia affects the balance of power with Israel. Because European attention and resources focused on Ukraine mean less attention on the Middle East. What happens in Venezuela affects what happens in China. Why? Because it's about American willingness to use military force to maintain hegemony. If America successfully overthrows Maduro, China takes note. If America fails or backs down, China takes note. It affects their calculations about Taiwan, about the South China Sea, about their entire strategic position. What happens economically affects everything. If the global economy collapses, it changes every calculation. Countries that seemed stable become unstable. Alliances that seemed solid break apart. New possibilities open up. New dangers emerge. You can't understand any one of these crises in isolation. You have to see the whole chessboard. You have to understand how moving one piece affects every other piece. And that's what we're going to do in the Game Theory and Geopolitics course. We're going to look at the whole chessboard. Let me come back to the great books because I want to make sure you understand why this matters so much. When you read Homer's Odyssey, you're reading about a man who's been at war for 10 years and then spends another 10 years trying to get home. 20 years of struggle, 20 years of obstacle after obstacle, and he never gives up. He faces monsters. He faces gods who hate him. He faces natural disasters. He loses all his men. Everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And he keeps going. Why? Because he has a purpose. He's trying to get home to his wife and son. That purpose keeps him alive, keeps him fighting, keeps him moving forward, even when all hope seems lost. That's what you need in the coming years. You need purpose. You need something deeper than survival, something deeper than fear, something that keeps you going when everything seems hopeless. Dante's Divine Comedy is about a man who's lost in a dark forest. Midway through his life, he realizes he's completely lost. And he has to journey through hell, through all the suffering and evil in the world, in order to eventually reach paradise. That journey through hell isn't just punishment, it's education, it's understanding. You have to confront evil, you have to understand it in order to transcend it. That's what we are all about to go through, a journey through a kind of hell, through chaos, through suffering, through the breakdown of the order we've known. And you can either be destroyed by that journey, or you can be transformed by it. The great books teach you how to be transformed rather than destroyed.